Join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome to the school committee meeting of Monday, March 14th, 2022. This is your notice and reminder that this meeting is being electronically recorded. We'll start tonight's business agenda with our spotlight event, and tonight we have Wamsutta Middle School students and faculty here to present to us, and for that I'll turn it over to Ms. Regan for introductions.
Thank you, Chairman Withers. Before we get started with the spotlight, first I'd like to welcome Mr. Atkinson to the table and then hand it over to Superintendent Slayer.
As you are all well aware, Mr. Atkinson was willing to step into a very difficult situation at the end of last year, serving as interim at Wamsutta while Mr. Connor moved on to another opportunity in the district. And as I reported not too long ago, we met with the staff and discussed the situation with the interim, and basically they had a choice to make whether or not they wanted to do a search for a principal or whether they felt like they had the right leader for their building already in the seat. And I'm here to say that it's really a testament to Mr. Atkinson's skills and work that meeting was about as unanimous a moment as I've ever experienced in my life. In fact, the only doubt that the group assembled had was in my ability to get it done. So it was a really nice moment for the building as a whole, that they really felt like they had found their leader. And as this is his first moment addressing the committee in this official role, I just wanted to take a moment to officially welcome the new principal of Wamsutta Middle School, Kevin Atkinson.
Thanks, Superintendent. I'm thrilled to be here. Really, I couldn't be happier where I landed. As many of you know, I spent the last 5 years as the assistant principal at Coelho, and I had a great experience there. I learned a lot under Principal Bowles. Had a great experience with the school committee, with this central office, with many of your children, and it was just Attleboro has been a very welcoming place for me. With that, it was a goal of mine for the last few years to move on to become a principal, and I was starting to get a little nervous, thinking that there may not be an opening, and I was balancing my strong loyalty to Attleboro with a desire to become a principal, and I couldn't have been happier when last spring Dave offered me a chance to fill in for Joe Connor as the interim, and I took it as an opportunity as a year-long interview. Joe Connor left me in great hands with a great staff, fantastic assistant principal in Doug Heel, and just obviously a fantastic school community is testament by the people behind me. I mean, this is a great showing. So again, I couldn't be happier to land where I am, and I hope I'm at Wamsutta for quite some time. So thank you.
Thank you, Principal Atkinson. So for the real reason why we're here tonight, the spotlight presentation with Wamsutta Middle School students and staff. They are here to share with you all of their learning experiences for project-based learning with our partnership with I2 Learning. And so I'm going to hand it back over to Mr. Atkinson to invite some of his team over to the table this evening.
So again, I'm very happy to be here for the spotlight tonight. It's obviously my first spotlight as principal, and I couldn't be prouder of the group behind me that's coming to show you the work tonight. Please let me introduce the students who are going to present to you tonight. So guys, if you just want to wave your hand when I call your name. And I apologize if I mispronounce your names. Lenia Kwashi Yadun, Aiden Dorrance, Julian Jackson, Adriata Gordon. Those are our 5th graders. And our 6th graders are Ryan McCann, Landon Deutscher, Joelle Sanchez, Ava Antonino, Sky Silvestre, Kadiata Vetsonga, Reese Desper, Ishan Kumar, Destry Mailing, Quinn Thompson, Devin Bach. Did I forget anybody? All right, so this is my great group that's going to present to you tonight. Specifically, the students are going to share with you the work they've done through project-based learning with the I2 program. Specifically, the themes of community and power will be discussed tonight. Some of the projects you'll see before you, and we'll get these up and running in a moment. Others you'll see virtually, or they'll be explained by the students. Through these projects, the students are going to discuss the learning process overall and the challenges they share. You'll hear them discuss how they experience what I2 calls desired student outcomes of creativity, curiosity, compassion, and perseverance, among others. So with that, please let me introduce the 5th grade students. So 5th grade, do you want to come up?
Our first PBS project of the year was to make a community book. In this project, we researched different types of communities and took data on our hobbies, cultures, families, and favorite things. Our favorite parts of this project were partnering up with classmates and putting all the data together into a book. We also enjoyed adding color and making it look nice before it was printed. We showed curiosity during this project when we learned about people's cultures and what their interests were. We had to be self-aware during this project too, since we were figuring out what makes us who we are and how we are connected to the Attleboro community and much more.
Our most recent project was a hands-on activity. We worked with partners to build the strongest bridge, only using toothpicks and glue. Before we built our bridge, we had a lot of strategizing. We looked at a lot of different bridges in the world to see which designs would work the best for the toothpick bridge. We even saw some that didn't work well, so we knew what not to do. In the middle of the project, we stopped and adapted to make our bridge better. We had to persevere by not giving up and kept trying new ideas. When our original ones didn't work, we were kind and compassionate community members to each other by making sure everyone's ideas were heard. Our favorite part of the project were putting together the bridges and seeing what other people came apart and testing the bridges at the end to see how strong it was.
This project was to build a suitcase, bring our most important things to our moon colony. We did it because we were studying the space and just finished reading the book, but not buddy. In the book, the main character carries all his favorite things in a suitcase. The rules for this assignment was the suitcase to open so you could take your stuff out, and it needs to close tightly so the items don't fall during the flight. And our colonies to match our personalities. The limits were that we could only use the materials Miss Hill gave us using, and it has to be 5x8, 8x2, because the size of the suitcase astronauts take in real life. I was curious, why is the suitcase so small? How do they fit all their stuff in there? While working on the project, I was creative, building the and making the lock. I like doing projects like this because I like building Legos, and it's very fun for me. You can work with partners and friends of yours.
Another project we did was making miniature models of the Earth and Moon. We had done this because we were researching certain parts of the solar system. We also had criteria and constraints for this assignment. The criteria was to make the project have accurate scale diameters. The constraints were to only use the materials given, like tinfoil and colored paper. It had been a struggle to make the model. Another struggle was that I had to communicate with my team on what we had to achieve our goal. Though it was hard, I was persevering and kept trying. PBL helps me being a kind and compassionate community. I enjoy doing PBL, and I hope we have more projects like this.
So again, the 5th grade project-based learning's focus was on community. So now we're going to hear, thank you 5th graders, you did a great job. And now we're going to call up our 6th graders who are going to discuss their theme, which is power.
This year our team is focusing on project-based learning and our theme is power. We are learning through hands-on activities and group projects while also focusing on important social skills. These skills include being proactive, creative, perseverant, curious, self-aware, critical and analytical thinkers, and kind and compassionate community members. We understand that developing these skills will help prepare us for our future.
After learning about ancient Egypt, our task was to take in our information and create a virtual museum. We used our creativity and included slides on our clay pinch pots, travel brochures, Nile River models, pyramid models, and our names in hieroglyphics.
Throughout this experience, we worked together as a team, we evaluated our work, and chose the best examples to showcase. We listened to each other and practiced being kind and compassionate.
So Landon, do you want to talk a little bit about your virtual museum?
Yes, sure.
And not Landon and Ryan and Joelle worked on the virtual museum project.
So here on this slide, you're going to see buildings and important monuments, obviously. And if you look at the very top, there is a Great Pyramid label, which in summary is basically just explaining what the Great Pyramids were and how they were created, which pharaoh created them, and which pyramids are which. For example, I believe the tallest one in the back was the one created by Pharaoh Khufu.
And what I find, this is, I could play with this exhibit for a while because it's a perfect virtual museum. You go back to the lobby and go to the next exhibit, and I'll go to exhibit 2 now, and we could spend the next hour going through the different the links here from the Nile River to the animals. So, well, I'll let the experts do the talking.
So this slide is about the Nile River. The Nile River is, more in summary, the main source of water in Egypt. Most of its cities are along the Nile River, and the Nile River has 3 seasons: Akhet, Shimu, and Peru, I think. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce them, but...
You did better than I would. Exhibit 3.
So in Exhibit 3 is like the pharaohs and then ancient, and the writing and ancient art. So mostly this exhibit is about which pharaohs ruled in what time, their art that they made, and the hieroglyphs.
Back to the lobby for exhibit 4.
You're gonna see, this isn't the full slide, but this is just a label for the Hall of Judgment, which is basically, as we think of the afterlife, like heaven and all those things, this is basically the in-between of the afterlife and being doomed for all eternity. This is where your heart is weighed, and if your heart is, I believe, lighter than the feather of truth, you are sent to live in the afterlife. But if your heart is heavier than the feather of truth, it is eaten by a mythical creature that I forget the name of.
And we go into the brochures now? Okay.
So here, the brochures are just a couple of guides we made on cities we have researched, such as this one is mine, and this is a guide to Thebes.
And on the far left, you're gonna see the cover of my brochure. In the middle, you're gonna see some exhibits and some things I wrote about them. And on the far right, you're gonna see the names of each exhibit. Oh, it looks like
Yeah, they're all
a mess.
Okay. Are we exiting the museum?
Yeah.
Okay. And this slide is even great too. Thanks for coming. The museum is now closed, but we hope you enjoyed our stay. Come back soon. And we did enjoy it.
In class, we are reading the novel The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. This is the story of William Kamkwamba, a young boy from Africa, who creates a windmill and brings electricity to his village.
Our task was to build a wind turbine just like William did, which would generate power. We were given certain criteria such as time and materials.
We worked together to research working wind turbines. We then created a model and tested it. Next, we were able to observe our classmates' models. We reflected on our findings and were given the opportunity to rebuild.
The final step in this process was showcasing our wind turbines. We set up our models and invited a 5th grade class in to view our final products. This step was important because we were able to explain our design. We felt proud to show what we learned.
Throughout this process, we were perseverant. We had to keep trying to build a successful model. As you can see from our model's name, 15th Failure, it was a true challenge.
I learned a lot from this project. For Ishan and I, school comes pretty easy. I'm at the top of my class for math and ELA. I usually don't need help, but this project gave me just enough of a challenge. When my original idea didn't work, I felt annoyed and hopeless. I struggled with my group, which honestly was something new for me. In the end, though, we used our creativity and persevered. This project taught me a valuable lesson that part of learning is that struggle.
I also learned a lot from this project. This is my first year in a regular classroom. School isn't always easy for me, but with hands-on activities, I can learn and show what I know in a different way. I'm thankful for these projects because it makes learning fun, and I finally want to come to school each day.
Thank you, 6th graders. You did a great job. So, I'll just say a few things and we'll open up to questions. So, before we open it up to questions, I just wanted to say thank you to the families and the teachers, especially the students, for all their hard work tonight. We're really proud of all the desired student outcomes that they discussed. And it's a great tie-in to what Attleboro is doing with our digital portfolios and our work with Portrait of a Graduate, the pillars of communication, collaboration, and innovation. Because I believe what we saw tonight, there was a lot of collaboration, a lot of communication, and definitely some innovative ideas. So I thought it was a great tie-in. So with that, students, if you have any questions for the students, whoever feels, I guess, the most comfortable can answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Storrs?
I got a tough technical one. So with the wind turbine, how much current did we get, and or what did we use to measure it or power it? Or did we power anything on with it?
I believe the measurement was in milliwatts, and I think the highest.
We got to like 900.
I think it was 1,900 or something. It was a while ago. So I'm not sure, but
You had it functioning. That's great.
Any other questions, Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not so much a question, but just a comment about how impressed I was that everybody who spoke touched upon perseverance and really pushing through the problem and really learning some resiliency through your projects, and that's going to serve you well even outside of science. So that really was very heartening to hear.
Mr. Larson?
I have a great, very colorful display right in front of me. I didn't know if somebody could explain this to me.
So that is our Nile River model.
Oh.
Try to make the Nile River out of,
Very good.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to thank all the students for coming and doing a great job. It's not easy to get up and, as we always say, get up and speak in front of a room of adults and students. So you guys should all be very proud. You did a great job, and look forward to more great things to come from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Next time. Yeah, wait. He's gonna announce us. Right.
All right. Next on our agenda tonight, we have our Student Advisory Council around Attleboro update.
Good evening. This week's All Around Attleboro segment contains important information regarding the end of March.
We're starting off with our SAC shoutouts. Congratulations to all the Skills USA winners at district competitions. And congratulations to the AHS cheerleaders for winning state championships. On to elementary schools. All elementary schools are having kindergarten registration, which is now open. All elementary schools are also having ST Math March Madness, which is taking place all month. Willett is having their PTO meeting on March 17th at 6 p.m., and this will be a virtual meeting. For the middle schools, Wamsutta is having a school council meeting on March 23rd at 5:30 p.m., and Wamsutta is having their PTO meeting on March 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Coelho's council meeting will be on March 30th at 5:30 p.m., and Coelho is also having a PTO meeting on March 30th at 6:30 p.m.
For the high school, Math MCAS retakes are happening on March 15th and 16th, and Transition Day, which is a half day for all students, is happening on March 17th and 18th. Come support our music department at the festival production preview on March 18th at 7 p.m. in the Bray Auditorium. And Trimester 3 starts on March 21st, which is a week from today. In addition, spring sports also begin on March 21st, so be on the lookout for more information regarding games and schedules. MCAS ELA testing is happening on March 22nd and 23rd. And Sophomore Gathering is on March 25th at 7 p.m. at the Elks, and tickets will be sold in the Student Activities Office from March 21st through the 24th. For community engagement, the Blue Pride Ambassadors Club shoe drive is still happening, and you may drop off your donations on March 19th and 26th between 9 and 12. This will help raise funds for Staff Appreciation Week, scholarships, and Staff Back to School Luncheon. The community open house for the current AHS building is on March 19th from 9 to 12. This is an opportunity to reminisce, place orders for commemorative t-shirts and other memorabilia, and buy tickets for the June 18th Lights Out extravaganza. This concludes our segment of All Around Attleboro. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we have our superintendent's report. Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. As I updated the committee on Friday, it does not seem that the removal of the mask requirement has had an impact on the number of cases in the district. The 24 that we had in the period that concluded last Wednesday, that was our lowest number since November. And we only had 3 positive pools in the entire district last week. Now, it is, the good news is that 24 would have even been lower if there hadn't been a cluster of cases at Willett Elementary School. The bad news is that we had a cluster of cases at one of our schools. So I think it's a pretty important reminder to all of us that COVID is still present in the community. The number is not zero. It's still there, and especially now that many of our students and staff are unmasked, and that we've returned to many of the regular practices that we were engaged in pre-pandemic in the classroom. It should not surprise us that that is a situation in which the virus can spread if we're not careful. So this is why testing remains an important part of what we do, and it helps us to identify cases. In fact, this particular cluster was identified through at-home testing. Over the weekend, a couple families came up with positive results. They notified the school, and then when we saw others, we called in the city health department. They did a full investigation. They got the state's epidemiologists involved, and they were satisfied that we had handled things correctly and that we were able to prevent the spread from getting to be larger than just a couple of students who, based on where they sit, on the bus that they take, and the fact that they're friends out of school, there was some spread in that case. But what we're be looking to do as we move forward is to make sure that when we have positive cases, which we have every reason to believe there will be more, that we don't see that spread turning into a spreader event where large numbers of students are being infected, that we have to shut down classrooms or even have a bigger problem than that. So this continues to be a thing that hasn't gone away, and we're not, we haven't stopped worrying about it or paying attention to it, and we'll keep publishing all of our data so that everybody can see how things are going. But on the whole, and again, I am not a doctor, but at this stage, if this was a problem, I think we'd be dealing with a very different situation. And so in this moment, I would say things are going exceptionally well. Moving on, as you well know, my professional practice goal is around district communication. And one of the action steps that I had said that I was going to do was to do a tour of the district and speak with parents. That kicks off tomorrow night at Hill Roberts at 6 p.m. That's the first of 5. I'm visiting all of the elementary schools, and families are invited to attend whichever one's most convenient. But again, we imagine that middle school families would feel comfortable returning to their elementary school. High school parents are welcome to come, but I have to be honest, it's more tailored towards families who have many years ahead of them. The purpose of the presentation is to explain some things about how the district works and things that they can expect about how we function and what we're trying to accomplish on the whole as an educational system. So I'm very hopeful that it'll be a good use of everyone's time, and we'll certainly make some revisions if we feel like we need to make some adjustments. But the first one is tomorrow, and then we have next Tuesday the 22nd at Hyman Fine, and then next Wednesday the 23rd at Studley, and then the following week we have Wednesday the 30th at Thatcher and Thursday the 31st at Willett. So we'll be done by the end of March, and when we're all done, we'll certainly report back on my perception of how it went, and it's something we can talk about whether it's something we want to pursue as a regular type of thing that we do, or whether it was a one and done based on the experience. So we'll keep you informed about that. On the administrator front, I have a couple updates. As I've let you know last week, went to Thatcher a couple times, had some conversations with their staff about their vacancy. They made it very clear to me that their preference would be not only to have an experienced administrator, but an experienced administrator who knows Attleboro. They really felt like that's what they needed to take the next step and to address some of the concerns that they have about their building. And in response to that feedback from them, I told them that we had a administrator who was looking for the next challenge in his career and was actually active in a job search for opportunities outside of the district. So I said, would you like to have a conversation with him about whether or not this might be a good fit, and they said yes, and so we arranged that last week and brought them together. And it obviously went well because when he left and I met with the faculty again, they made it very clear that it was a situation they wanted to pursue, that they felt good about that opportunity, and so I offered him the job, and he took it, and so Frank Rich is going to be the principal of Thatcher come July 1st. That's great news for Thatcher. It's great news for the district that we're plugging a hole in a tough assignment with an experienced person, someone who we were theoretically on the verge of losing to another district. So this was a win-win for us. Of course, the flip side of that is that now Hill Roberts is losing their administrator, and so the process to fill that vacancy begins this week, and we'll keep you informed about how that plays out. As you know, the high school has a pretty big role to fill, and the committee for finding that replacement has already met twice. The posting closes on Friday, and again, we have a pretty aggressive timeline. Our hope is to get this process done as quickly as possible, because there are several other districts who are also looking for high school principals, and we want to make sure that we get a crack at that pool before it's all picked over. So I feel good about the work that's being done there, and we'll keep you informed about how that plays out. And then the final one on the principal front, as you know, Noah Collins, the assistant principal at I'm Fine, he was selected by his staff to replace Tricia Martin, who has announced her retirement. Again, I think it really speaks to the work that we're doing as a district, that so many of our schools actively want the administrators that are in the district. They know these people, warts and all, right? They work with them every day, and that they see them as the people they want to lead their buildings, I think really speaks highly of how they feel supported by these individuals, and how these individuals are really doing the kind of work that we want principals to do. I mean, the administrator is a very, very difficult job, as we've talked about many, many times, and I'll just say, in my experience in a quarter century, this is a district that's had not always the best relationships between the teachers and their administrators, and it's a point of pride that we've really turned that around. So, good for Noah, and we've posted the vacancy that creates, which is his assistant. So, we're out looking for that position as well. So, a lot of change. We're planning to, later in the spring, when all these positions have settled out, we know where everybody's landed, bringing everybody in and doing a full review of all the changes and letting you meet everybody, because some of the people you haven't met. So that'll be coming. It's been a big year for change. There's a lot of reasons for that, which we've discussed before, but I'm really feeling like we're doing a good job of capitalizing on the opportunities that these changes are presenting to us, and are looking to make the district an even better place for next year as a result of these changes. At this time, I want to switch over to the demolition update. Mr. Furtado, join us? Yes. Mr. Furtado. Looking for an update on the demolition. There were questions at our last meeting, which you addressed by providing some information.
I did. So we are having a meeting Wednesday to start some of the internal work that has to happen before we do anything. As we explain, they'll be assessing plumbing, electrical, and things like that to try to figure out, if they cut the red wire, what happens. In addition to that, you're gonna see some trailers moving over near the front of the school closest to Blue Pride Way, and then you'll also see some coverings down in that pool area in the building regarding any remediation work for any materials they find that need to be dealt with. And then the actual demolition is going to be very close to April break.
Questions, Mr. Geddes?
So just to confirm, because I think one of the main questions that we had a couple of weeks ago was related to what's coming down and how that's going to be blocked off, so to speak. And my understanding and forgive the explanation of the building, but walking from the trophy cases outside the gym towards the locker room, anything that would be on your right beyond that wall will no longer be there.
Right.
That's all that's coming down. So locker rooms, medical assisting, weight room,
Yep.
pool, small gym. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And again, we're doing this now because that space that will be created is needed to finish off that back section of the new building. That's why this is happening right now.
And so the doorways towards that locker room hallway will be closed off. The doors into the pool lockers will be closed off. The pool entrance lobby has already been blocked off, but.
Right. Yeah, they'll be building walls in all those areas that will essentially be the outside of the building at that point.
And so as one final plug for this Saturday's event, this is the last chance for the community to come see the pool, the small gym, the locker rooms, the weight room, all of that.
Any impact on education, student circulation, anything like that the last couple of months of school?
Yeah, we certainly don't expect that. Once that area has been torn down, there's not a lot of demand to be in that area of the school in the first place. So we don't expect it to be impacting students in any significant way after the demolition.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Furtado?
Thank you. And then the last thing for you this evening, towards the end of vacation, Chairman, you received a letter from Tri-County, the Tri-County superintendent, sort of a strange way to do the communication, but anyways, it informed us that the school committee for Tri-County had decided not to renew the agreement that we've been working under for the last 6 years. Chairman Withers asked me to reach out. Took a little bit of time to finally connect, but finally got the chance to speak to the superintendent there. New superintendent, the last one has retired. And she said, yep, you got that right. I asked for what the reasoning was, or, that was sort of a surprise to us. And, she basically said that, she pointed out that when the new Attleboro High School is done, it will be a bigger CTE school than Tri-County is. And so from their perspective, there wasn't much of a future for Attleboro students to be at Tri-County, because when we're done, there will only be 2 programs left that they have that we don't. That's auto collision and health careers. And that as the bigger of the 2 schools, that they don't see us as particularly fertile ground for them to put their efforts into for looking for students. They said that they have quite a bit of demand in other places, and that it makes more sense for them to focus on relationships with communities in which they're going to be getting lots of students, not just 1 or 2. And so I said, that all made sense to me. I mean, all those things are true. I said, but the bottom line here is that with this agreement is what allowed us to have students who wanted the programs that you have that we don't, to do your exploratory. If we don't have this agreement, then then our students are not going to be able to attend Tri-County for exploratory. And I asked Jeremy Gay, our director, to provide me the language that's from. So this is from the guidance, the written guidance from the Office of College, Career, and Technical Education. That's their guidance on non-resident student tuition, and it reads, 9th grade students who reside in districts that offer a Chapter 74 exploratory program, and that's exactly what our 9th grade exploratory program is, it's a Chapter 74 program, are required to attend the Chapter 74 exploratory program offered by their resident district. And so in the absence of that agreement, I said, kids aren't going to have the option. They're going to go to Attleboro. And she said, yeah, that's exactly right. I said, there will be some families who are disappointed by that. And she said, yep, that's right too. And I said, okay. And then we understand each other. And she said, yep, we do. And that was the end of that conversation. So having that information back and making sure that there wasn't a misunderstanding, where there was a new superintendent, I was worried that maybe the message got, misinterpreted or something. And the answer to that is no. No, they understand, and they believe that the proper place for our students is at Attleboro High School. And so, considering that's how I've always seen it, doesn't seem like there is much to this, except it is going to be a change that will affect a handful of families, and wanted the committee to be aware that that is the implications of what has transpired.
Okay, so, I agree largely with, I think, everything you said. It was a strange communication. There was a letter, mailed to my address, and it was from the superintendent informing me of the vote. It kind of shocked me, and you had no idea, why it was done that way. I don't know. I don't like the, it feels, and the vote feels like a fast one was pulled on us a little bit, which, I'm not crazy about either. But, that being said, we do have a vibrant CTE program here. We have almost all the programs that they have at Tri-County now, or will, with the new high school. So I think it's appropriate our students go to Attleboro High School. I think that's what we've always wanted and encouraged anyway, but it leaves a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, I think, the way that this was handled towards us, and kind of the indifference towards the students it is going to affect, because it's not as if there's going to be no students from Attleboro that are impacted, and the lack of concern from them from the Tri-County end is disappointing. But I saw a bunch of hands go up. I'm going to try and remember and go in order of who got their hands up fastest, and I think it was you, Mr. Larson.
I just, thank you. Yeah. I believe we still have students that are currently going to Tri-County.
Yes.
Who won't be graduating this spring.
Correct.
So where are they?
They will get to stay. They will get to continue to finish at Tri-County.
Thank you.
Mrs. Doris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to reiterate so parents get, they understand the situation. So we're talking two programs, auto body and
health careers.
Auto body and health careers. Other than that, we offer the program 100%.
Will come September.
Yes. That's the proper story. So either we're already offering it, or we will be come next year. Every other program, with the exception of those two. So under that agreement, as it is this year, our students who want specifically those programs would be allowed to go there in 9th grade, do their exploratory, and then move on to those programs.
No.
Now they won't be able to do that.
Correct. Yes.
Well, yes.
Yep.
I think we're on the same page.
Yep.
Currently, they were able to do those programs. They'd go to exploratory, and then they would move into those programs in 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade.
Yep.
Now, because they won't be able to attend 9th grade exploratory, they will not be able to continue into that program past that, which means that is no longer open to them, and it is not this committee, and it is not this administration making that decision. It is 100% Tri-County and their school committee.
The only thing I would modify is, I believe they can get into those programs in their sophomore year.
Oh, really? I thought the rule was they had to go to exploratory there before they could transition. Nope. Oh, okay.
Nope.
Okay.
But that would be only if there was a seat in the program, which, given that someone else got the seat in exploratory, that's unlikely.
And again, overall, I know how great our programs are here. Yep. So I would always encourage any Attleboro student and any Attleboro family to pursue what we offer here, because my child has done it. I've seen other children do it, and they get a lot out of it. So, thank you.
Mr. Domenici?
Thank you. So Mr. Larson asked question 1 for me, so thank you. My question is simply, is there opportunity that we may be exploring bringing on those two programs, or in the case of, I guess, health services, maybe trying to bring it back? Auto collision seems like we're going to have a pretty robust automotive program.
Yeah, there's been no discussion about auto collision.
Okay.
That doesn't mean it couldn't be discussed, but the answer to that, I've never heard any perspective that there's that's an appropriate choice for us to pursue. Health careers is quite the opposite, right? There is an intention to pursue that in the long run.
Thank you.
Mr. Geddes?
So two questions. One, I guess, is a follow-up to that. How related are the medical assisting program that we have now to the health career program that was at Tri-County? Like, is it
Yeah, it's two different frameworks.
Okay.
I'm not well versed in the difference enough to be able to speak to it intelligently, but I believe they are similar, obviously, because they deal with the health fields. But I believe the health careers program actually results in you being has slightly higher standing in terms of where you land at the end of the program than the medical assisting program that we have is. But again, they're two different programs, and we've been talking about having a vision for, if not adding health careers, switching to health careers.
So health careers is more of like healthcare administration as opposed to actual medical assistance.
Yeah, I can't say exactly specifically what in the curriculum is different.
And then the second question I had, as far as opportunity goes, we are kind of in a sweet spot because we're still somewhat close to Southeastern Regional, Bristol, Plymouth. Are we limited that Tri-County would have been the only opportunity? Or if those schools have auto collision or healthcare and we decide not to bring healthcare on, would those be options for us?
So again, in sophomore year, but for, under the guidance from the state, all of our students should be taking exploratory at Attleboro High School. The only exception to this are the kids that are going to Bristol Aggie, right? That's a whole different consideration. So that's those families, that decision is completely separate. But for these programs, anybody, regardless of where you want to go, is going to be in our exploratory in 9th grade, and I don't think that there's much difference between Tri-County and any of the other regionals in terms of where our students would be standing with them.
So would we have to, I guess ultimately my question is, should we be exploring in agreement if we have auto collision students, and Bristol Plymouth offers auto collision, should we be exploring that as another partnership or just letting those students go sophomore year?
So two things. One, I think for the same reason that Tri-County saying no, I don't think anyone else is going to be particularly interested in what we were offering before. And the only reason why we had a sort of a different relationship with Tri-County is because there was a history in the community where we have legacy families, and I talked about that specifically with the superintendent, and she recognized that that's an issue. But from her perspective, we're not a member district, and that's their first concern. And then she talked about, she was very explicit about how things have changed. Access to Chapter 74 programs is, in high demand statewide. It's partly why the state changed, the hour requirements, so that, which is what prompted us to change our schedule for the high school, right? Like, they're ratcheting things up because there is so much demand for this that they want to make sure that all the programs that are being run at the state are being done so at the highest possible level. So Attleboro is exceptionally fortunate that the people that before us had the wisdom and the vision to put us in a position to capitalize on all this. If you pay attention to the newspaper, right? North Attleboro really laments that it's sort of shackled to that agreement with Tri-County, and we're very, very fortunate that we were able to do it on our own.
I apologize, one last question. So is it worth us continuing to explore making our CTE programs available? Because I think Seekonk is a Tri-County district, so those students are already coming through Attleboro to get there. You just mentioned North Attleboro. So where we have a couple of border communities, is that, I think it was pre-COVID, we had gone school choice and then went to not being school choice, but part of the reason we wanted to go school choice was for CTE purposes, and then we figured out that there are better ways to make CTE available. So
there's two initiatives that are sort of in discussion right now as we try to think about how to maximize our resources. One is for local area communities, right, as the demand for these programs increases, right, there's not enough seats in the regionals to meet the demand, right? Like many families across the state have really woken up to the fact that the Chapter 74 programs are a tremendous opportunity to prepare students for life in the economy of the century. So as more and more people try to figure out what to do with the lack of access, there is the possibility that if we have untapped capacity here, that in communities around us, if students can't get into programs at their regional, I believe that we're then able to take them here. That we're not allowed to do that for the students that, as part of being a member of those schools, they have to go there if the seat's there for them. But I'm pretty sure that once they've been excluded because there wasn't room, that changes things. So we've been talking about having a sort of a regionalized approach to students who want access, who couldn't get it otherwise, coming to Attleboro if we have excess capacity. But it's a fair question as to whether or not we really have any excess capacity. The sophomore class, just what the rest of the high school did their course selections, and over 90% of the sophomores selected a CTE program as part of their educational program. That's a stunning number. And really, I think speaks to what I'm talking about, that a lot of people have woken up to, that this is the future. So how much capacity are we going to have? I think we're going to have to get into the new building and really see what life is like under how it works there to say with confidence. But what I can say with confidence is that regardless of how that works out, because there may or may not be real excess capacity to play with, it might only be in some programs. After school is absolutely an untapped resource, right? When the school day ends and the kids go off to play sports or go home or whatever, go to work, whatever they do, the building empties out. What they're calling at the state level, CTE after dark, which is weird because it's not dark in the afternoon, but whatever they want to call it, the idea of running Chapter 74 programs after school for students who take their academics at their home school. So if I'm a student in Norton or Plainville or wherever, I go to my high school, I take my regular academics with my friends that I've been going to school with my whole life, I finish my school day, and then I come here, and rather than play sports, I do Chapter 74 at Attleboro High School. That's a thing that we're really looking into and getting serious about, and talking about trying to identify a program where there's enough demand that we could pilot that as an approach to see what the challenges are to running it that way. But those shops that we're building, when people talk about how expensive the building was, obviously the Chapter 74 programs, were part of what made the building the expense that it was. So, they're used all day long during the school day. We also plan to use them at night to do the adult education piece that, the condition of these shops didn't let us do anymore, but in that building we will, and that will be a giant revenue generator for the district, being able to use those shops to allow people to pursue recertification and advanced certification in their fields in those settings. But that's the nighttime. So there's also this chunk of time between the end of the school day and before the adults all start rolling in that we see as a real opportunity to expand the use of that space, but also to provide access to Chapter 74 programming to local area students.
Thank you.
Mrs. Torres?
So in that vein, have we ever thought of the idea of maybe some ACA type students after hours taking advantage of Chapter 74 programs?
So
kind of goes along with what you were
yes,
just
both
saying.
the AVA and the ACA students are allowed to do Chapter 74 if that's part of what they're trying to do. Quite frankly, I don't think there's much of that in the ACA because a lot of times just the circumstances that we're talking about haven't made that part of the picture, but where that's part of the puzzle, that's absolutely allowed, and we would build around that.
Mr. Frappier?
I just had one question about the enrollment for the Tri-County, going back a few minutes to what Mr. Storr said. So all existing students are allowed to finish. Were there any incoming students that we were expecting to go to Tri-County that are now not able to do it?
So there are students who are currently in 8th grade who think they're going to Tri-County next year, who, as a result of that letter, are not.
Do we know roughly how many?
I don't know, but based on this conversation, I was going to work with the middle school principals to try to figure out and make sure that those families are aware of the change.
Oh, thank you.
If I had to guess, less than 10.
Fair enough.
But that's more than 0. Okay. That concludes my report.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. Next, we have our minutes from our February 28th, 2022 meeting. Minutes were circulated with your materials. For a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any edits, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda, motion to accept the donation in the amount of $10,000 from the Thatcher PTO to Thatcher Elementary School gifts donation line. Motion to accept an anonymous donation in the amount of $500 to the AHS field hockey team. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $3,000 from the JS Lim Foundation for the 2022-2023 Attleboro High School Math and Science Prizes. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $5,000 from the Feinstein Foundation, Inc. to Wamsutta Gifts donation line. Motion to approve a student-funded overnight international field trip proposal for 45 grades 9 through 12 students to travel to Italy, Germany, and Switzerland in April of 2024. And a motion to approve a student-funded overnight international field trip proposal for 45 grades 9 through 12 students to travel to Spain and Portugal in April of 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Just had a question.
Question, Mr. Storrs?
Thank you. So, when it came to the field trip proposals, I mean, the policy says, if it's between 3 months and 6 months, so the longest, furthest away one is supposed to be 6 months. These are 2 years and 3 years.
Yeah.
Now, I can understand why there might be a desire to kind of get pre-permission so far in advance. There's a lot that has to go into this, but it just seems like it's against the template, the policy, as far as the time frame of getting permission. It's a little bit beyond the 6 months, I guess is a good way to put it.
The reason why they do that is because the cost of the trip, and students pay for it themselves, and so there are payment plans that go along with it, and so this allows for families to budget the amount of money if the child does want to attend that trip in 24 or in 25. But you're right, if we can revisit the policy at some point
That's what
and
I was just thinking. Yep.
change it.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next, we have subcommittee meeting reports. We'll start with Finance and Facilities, Mr. Larson.
Finance and Budget Subcommittee met March 2nd. Mr. Furtado took us through the monthly budget reports. At this point, the budget is, for the most part, performing relatively well. We have the ongoing issue, I guess is a better way to call it, of some out-of-district transportation related to McKinney-Vento, and it has actually gotten worse since we last met. They are working through some possible solutions, but at this time we do not have one. But it will be certainly a major issue that we will have to work through at the end of the year. I don't know if you want to add anything to that or just.
No, other than it hasn't stopped.
So close. No. All right. Other than that, we did have an MSBA update, and a lot of the projects that we have coming, the building next door, the floors at the 2 elementary schools, everything is on schedule. The floors have gone out for bid out to the public, so all these projects are on schedule at this point. Have a number of motions to bring forward from the meeting. A lot of this is simply housekeeping that we do on an annual basis, so if anyone has any questions, please let me know. First, entertain a motion to approve no changes to the fee structure of the athletic fees and tuition charged for the Attleboro High School Children's Center for school year 2022-2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Motion to approve no rate increase for the fee for service for the school year 2022-2023.
So moved.
Sorry. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Mr. Storrs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So fee for service, we're talking about busing, right?
Yes, sir.
So busing's not gonna go up, being that gas is now like twice of what it was, a year ago?
We will be getting surcharges based on the fuel surcharge provisions of the contract. That,
So yes, prices are going up. Costs
yes,
are going up.
And it's a contract year, so yes, I would expect, in terms of our cost for transportation, it's going to be above the usual 2.5%.
So, not that I'm trying to, push to have this increase, but I guess the question really is, if we know that the cost is increasing, should we not be thinking about the idea of fee increase, or?
I think part of the struggle is that this is the time of year that we typically go out and look for families to commit to the transportation for next year, and we don't have that contract in hand.
Okay.
So quite honestly, we would be guessing at a number. We have money in that budget line item. It's one of the revolving accounts, so we feel at this point that we can weather the storm for this first year.
Okay.
And we will certainly be evaluating it going
During the
forward.
contract. Okay.
But there's too many unknowns at this point to realistically come forward with a number that we could defend at a future date.
It's a fair explanation. Thank you.
All right. With Mr. Withers' abstention, any other, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next one, motion to approve the fees proposed by Abacus, including an increase in their camp programs explained in the memo from Kim Laramie, dated February 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, motion to declare as surplus the 14 copying machines listed in an email from Michelle Bartek, dated February 3rd, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
So all this is really doing is declaring them surplus on our end. Then there's a whole process that has to go forward at City Hall, but these are copiers that we are not bringing with us into our future residence. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. Next, motion to approve Camp Ramsbottom's use of the Willett Elementary School parking lot for their pickup and drop-off sites for the 2022 summer camp program.
So moved.
Second.
All I would say is it's great to see Camp Ramsbottom having children back at camp this summer. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Lastly, motion to approve to hold a public hearing on April 25th, 2022 at 6:15 for the FY23 school budget.
So moved.
Second.
This will be the most riveting 15 minutes of your lives, folks, so don't miss it. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Chairman, that's the extent of our report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Next, we have policy and personnel. Mr. Storrs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Policy and Personnel Subcommittee met on March 7th. The following motions were voted out of subcommittee unanimously. I will put them up in groups for full debate and a vote. So the first one is, we reviewed them, and it's just a review date, so no changes being recommended for the following policies and exhibits. DBC-E1 Budget Process Timeline, DBG Budget Adoption Procedures, DD Funding Proposals and Applications, DFDA Golden Age Pass, DJ Purchasing, DJA Purchasing Authority, DKC Expense Reimbursement, EBC-S Policy on COVID-Related Issues, EEA School Committee Transportation Policy, EEA-E1 Annual Rates Fee for Service Transportation, just discussed during the finance, JJIF Head Injury and Concussion Policy, this is our biannual review, and JQ-E1 the User Fee Schedule. Does anybody want to take any of these individually? Seeing none. Any discussion regarding any of these policies or exhibits? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Next, the following policies, the committee recommends to align them with mask. In many cases, they're already mostly aligned, but we're looking to align all of these exactly with MASC. DA, fiscal management goals. DB, annual budget. DBD, budget planning. DBJ, budget transfer authority. DGA, authorized signatures. DIE, audits. DJE, procurement requirements, and the recent update to EBCFA face coverings. Again, would anybody like any of these to be taken out separately?
I have a question on the budget policies, so I don't know if, why don't we take the DB, DBD, and DBJ
Okay.
separately?
So I will do DA, DBJ, DGA, DIE, DJE, and EBCFA. Put those up for discussion. Any discussion? Yes.
More of a, I guess, general on the whole thing. Is it possible in the future we can either see the changes in a different color or see the old policy along with the new policy when
Yep.
changes occur?
I will ask, because that's what we receive for the policy subcommittee. We usually receive red lines, so I'll ask for the committee to receive it like that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any discussion on those? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have the DB annual budget and DBD budget planning.
Yeah, so we had, and the answer may be no impact, but we had in the past, I don't remember if it was when I was chairman of the policy committee or subcommittee or after, we had revised our budget policies to set up our time frame and, you know, a very detailed schedule of what we're going to be doing. Is this replacing that?
Well, so the budget process timeline,
Yeah.
which was DBC-E1 and
Yeah.
the budget adoption procedures, DBG, those we are just noting the review date
Mhm.
because those are working for us. So for example, the budget process timeline, that's the one that talks about how in December, the superintendent will bring to us the priorities for the next year, and then we have specific time-related goals between then and when we have the budget hearing.
Got it.
So these, the annual budget and the budget planning, that's more generic, I guess is a good way to put it. It's a very more generalized discussion regarding the annual budget, that we're going to have a hearing, we're going to make an announcement of the hearing, it has to be within a certain time frame, but not more than a certain time frame. All those kind of rules and regulations that goes along with it. Make sense?
Fair, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on DB annual budget and DBD budget planning? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, we have one policy to adopt, brand new policy, DEC, Federal Funds Supplement but not Supplanting Policy. So this is a MASC policy that the administration recommends that we add to our policy binder. And it's more a statement that federal funds will be used in a certain way and not in another. Okay? Any discussion regarding policy, the adoption of policy DEC? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right. The following policies, there were some minor edits, mostly just some wording issues that we found while reviewing. DBC, budget deadlines and schedules. DH, bonded employees and officers. DI, fiscal accounting and reporting. DK, payment procedures. DFBB, school choice. And DQ, student fees, fines, and charges. I should note that we are taking, which is in the next section, DBC-R1, the wording that's in that budget hearing language, and we're moving it into DBC. So this motion of the changes to DBC will also include removing the -R1 budget hearing language because it's just being merged into DBC. So we didn't see a need to have two separate. We just took that wording, threw it into the other policy. Anybody want any of those to be taken separately? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or nays? See none. All right. And lastly, we had a recommendation, as we just discussed, we just removed the DBC-R1 budget hearing because we moved the language over. And lastly, I think everybody be okay with this one. We're looking to remove policy EBCFB, COVID-19 employment policy update, recreational travel and mandatory self-quarantine based on the recent changes. Any discussion regarding removal of EBCFB? All right, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or nays? All right. And that, Mr. Chairman, concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Storrs. Infrastructure and Facilities, Mr. Domenici.
Thank you, Chairman. The Infrastructure and Facilities Subcommittee met on March 9th. The high school project, well, Mr. Larson was gracious enough to give the update. That's great. And also the same with the gym floors in Hill Roberts and Hyman Fine. On time, on budget for the high school. The only note I will make is that it seems as if, though the temporary occupancy permit will still take effect in mid-June, there's a slight delay in some of the administration's furnishings. So it looks like Dave and Lori will stay put till the beginning of July. Yep, gym floors are out for bid. That's moving along. The city solar project, we've been told the timeline is to start has moved out to May, which actually I think works out a little bit better. We had some concerns about starting it towards the tail end of winter. So that's the latest on the city solar project. I had some brief discussion about the train performance contract. There's a lot of work that's going to be taking place this summer. So between, and I think specifically Wamsutta was mentioned because there's going to be some extensive work in all factions there with heating and cooling units and pulling things out of walls and venting. And so between the high school project continuing, the gym floors, the city solar project, the reconnecting of Rathburn Willard, and of course the train performance contract, it's going to make for a very busy summer across all the buildings. And then we kind of pivoted over. We had moved our meeting up because we needed to have a discussion about the event taking place on the 19th. It seems like we may have been a little premature in our motion to surplus the current high school at our last meeting. There's a few additional steps that need to take place, first of which is the administration is going to continue to work on an inventory of the building, kind of like a sticker process to determine, good quality materials still in the building, relatively decent quality materials in the building, and stuff that should be determined for surplus. I believe that's on schedule to be finished this week, if I recall. So by the end of the week. At that point, there's a few processes per the city ordinance, which we have to make sure that we follow in terms of any other departments within the city potentially taking a look at material. At the same time, we know we have an event coming up on the 19th. There's a lot of folks that have expressed interest potentially in, possibly taking some of these surplus items home as memorabilia. So I do believe we will be able to on the 19th at least kind of give a high level idea of some items that could be available, but would not be available until a later time. So, Rob, I just want to make sure I got that right.
Yeah, nothing specifically will be available on the 19th.
Right.
And I don't think I don't think Blue Pride Ambassadors Club is even really planning to say what specifically will be available, if anything, in June. But people should still plan to come and walk the building and take a look. And some of the stuff that we were hoping would be available, the facility staff, Jason Parento and his team, will be able to store those items so that if we are able to make those available to the community, they won't disappear when Consigli takes over that part of the building on April 1st.
So we have to finish the inventory. We have to follow procedures per the city ordinance with respect to other departments. And then potentially anything that could potentially be of value or sold or monies raised still has to go through the mayor's office and the council. So we may have to revisit a motion to surplus our building at a later time.
Yeah, I would expect that in the future we'll have a motion to surplus various items within the building.
Right.
We'll have meetings with the city side and get them a list of items that we want to keep, items that we want to donate or sell for charitable purposes, and items that we think are can be trashed. And then the mayor and the city will determine what items we're able to then donate or sell. So that's the procedure that we'll follow.
So a few different steps. So as a result, I don't have any motions to bring out. The only other thing I'll mention, which is not necessarily facilities related, but we moved our meeting up on the 9th, and then immediately some of us went right over to the auditorium for the Attleboro High School Prism concert, which was absolutely fantastic. So I just wanted to make that final note, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Domenici. Next, we have open forum. Is there anyone who would like to address the school committee tonight at open forum? You good? All right, I will close open forum. Any new business anyone has tonight? No? All right, then the Attleboro School Committee will convene an executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Sections 21A, 2, and 3, to discuss strategy with respect to negotiations with non-union personnel and to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining. As an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the school committee, the committee will not return to open session. Motion. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Frappier?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Geddes?
Yes.
Mr. Withers, yes. Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Storrs?
Yes.
Ms. Porto?
Yes.
Mr. Domenici?
Yes.
All right, we'll take a couple minutes.
No problem. Do you need another one?
No, I'm good.
What else did you do?